remember that it's the girls from the Barbie Consortium?
Oh, sure, I remember.
They set up a company that issues preferred stock. The preferred stock offers interest at 2% annual interest rate, repayable in, at their discretion, Becky's or Austrian money. This is after they get to Austria. It's at the Becky's discretion.
So they've got bearer bonds that pay 2%.
But they're not necessarily paid in
that are redeemable in Becky's.
That are redeemable in Barbies, in the bearer bond Barbies.
Okay.
And that are circulating as
so I've got
money.
Becky's and Barbies.
That's cruel. That's just cruel.
Wait a minute. So I've got the USC currency with a picture of a deer on the buck.
Right.
Right? And I've got a picture of the guy in black on the 20 or the 5.
Right, the cash.
The cash, yes.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's the sawbuck,
Which
which is a
sawhorse.
Sawhorse. Okay, so the USC currency is already a series of bad puns.
Right.
And don't forget the C note for the 100.
Right. Good point.
It's got David's profile on it.
Okay. Somebody. Okay, Paula.
I don't think
For
that is a pun.
For those who didn't follow your pun,
Centime, is
what's a C note?
A C note is the $100 bill.
But what's on it?
A C note.
ding.
Like,
Musical note.
Yeah, a musical
A
note.
musical note.
Right.
It's a
Okay.
C.
Right. So.
Garrett did that for
Right.
one of the illustrations.
Right. So we've got bucks and cash and sawbucks and C notes. That's bad. And
Is
then,
there any dough?
Becky's.
yeah, dough. Don't
Is it
forget
an
the dough.
800
And
hertz
then
C
we've
or
got
an 880
Becky's
hertz
and
C?
Barbies.
Right. Now the Beckys all just have Rebecca Stearns standing with one hand up like
As the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, okay.
The Beckys come in varying denominations.
Now the
The Barbies come in varying denominations. Some of them have Susan, some of them have,
The Barbies have the girls' portraits.
yeah.
Oh God!
Wandering away from.
Why not? These are some of the richest people in the world.
I understand that,
And
but
they're
what we
cute,
just
too.
said, what we just said
India, the
is
only thing
that
India
Bill
wants
Gates
is
and
foreign
Warren
currency
Buffett
from
issue
Europe.
their own
There's
currency
nothing else
and
in
put
Europe
their
that India
picture on.
wants.
Why not?
Except it's better looking than
Because the whole point about money is that any money is worth what you believe it is.
And so Becky's.
What you can convince your point of sale
And
that the
these
money
are
is worth.
backed by the army of the USC and by the richest women in the world. So,
Full faith and credit.
Money is just an idea backed by confidence.
right.
Mhm.
So,
And any confidence man knows
no, wait a
that.
minute. How many science fiction series have panels at conventions doing economic analysis of their imaginary currencies?
That would be us.
One.
Be us.
And, well,
I
David
wouldn't put it past Wheel of Time, but
yeah, because Brandon's insane.
Right, but
Yeah.
you understand where I'm going. This is one other area where we push the envelope really hard. And maybe
And it's
destroy
starting to
the idea
push
that there's an
back.
envelope at all.
And of course, that book is not yet finished, although we have a contract for it, it's not
The Aeneas
finished.
Waltz
And-
is
and-
not
Yeah, the Aeneas
And-
Waltz is not finished.
And so that is subject to change.
Right. But
And well, one thing's probably already changed.
Apparently, lots of things are subject to change. When Eric said
Yeah,
it
we
changes,
can't talk about
that's
it.
well,
but you already know
Not
from
till
the
starting
dough that
with
Eric likes bad puns, so
right,
it's pretty
right.
safe.
Well,
that's
and the
not
Becky's are already published. You know, at least the Russians stuck with rubles. Thank you.
Yes, well,
So
it could be
far.
rebels.
Yeah, but what do they put on the printed money?
Fred Barney on it.
Actually, I think they put the czar on the printed.
That's a really good point. You're going to.
Yeah,
Oh
1636, the
my God.
Kremlin Games requires a sequel. Because when we finish it,
Yeah, it's pretty cliffhanger.
It's utterly
snark
cliffhanger.
collar, but when we finish it, things are
Up in the air.
up in the air.
Almost literally, come to think of it.
You'll know September of next year. And, well, and Eric,
Some of us will know before that.
there, with any luck, there'll be an ER, so. Hi, Kim.
Slavery and innovation attractors.
Yes.
Since Rick brought up Russia and serfdom,
Right.
we're clearly the slavery.
Okay,
Okay.
let me go
Remember-
into slavery and
Yeah,
innovation and tractors just a little bit more. There is a popular truism that is true only in one sense, but mostly used in the other. The popular truism is that slavery cannot compete with free industry. This is absolutely true so far as the state is concerned, whether the state is the slaveholder or not. Okay? This is why Russia couldn't compete with the US. It's why the South couldn't compete with the North. It is absolutely true on a national or state level. It is not true and never has been at any point in history true on an individual level.
Right.
A slave, an individual slave owner versus somebody who's got to pay his employees. The slave owner will make more profit every time. There are no exceptions.
Well,
No.
okay.
Even the Germans used slave labor to make the V2 rockets. I don't care how technical it is.
Yeah, but what about productivity hit?
Productivity hit is there, but it does not compensate for the fact that you're not paying your people.
But.
And
okay,
barely feeding them.
We'll have a conversation about Chinese history sometime. And
The Chinese history includes a lot of.
I know, and that's why I'm saying we'll talk. But in any event, okay. So we know because Eric said over and over and over again in snarking session after snarking session and in print, he said that as the stories move east, that as we move out of Grantville, and the interesting part of what's going on moves towards Poland and Bohemia and Austria and
Istanbul.
and Russia, as the stories
Like the
move east,
railroad line.
that his personal giant goal, the overriding arch goal, is to prevent the second serfdom.
Okay, so back to these two attractors. The slavery attractor is very real because it's more profitable to have slaves at any given point. 10 years from now, you'd be doing better with free labor. But today, your profits are greater if you've got slaves, or if your employees are poorly paid, or if you can get away with tying them to you by healthcare, or if you can do anything that makes it so that your
Robber barons.
employers cannot effectively quit and go out into the marketplace and argue different.
Yeah. You owe
Different
your
issue.
soul to the company store, right?
If you can do that, however, whether you call it slavery, the company store, or any of a number of other things, including political prisons in China, you can make more money. And that's a powerful motive for the people in the 1632 universes, especially if you're competing with a new industry. One of the things that Marx brought out, and I'm not a Marxist by any stretch, but one of the things that he got right,
There it is.
one of the things that he got right is that when all of a sudden the craftsmen had to compete with industry, not only did industry mistreat its employees, but Craftsman started mistreating their employees even worse because they couldn't compete any other way. It becomes a race to the bottom in terms of how you treat people. And in the 1632 universe, there is a great deal of danger of that, especially in places that have lesser, for whatever political or circumstantial reasons, lesser access to the innovation, or simply because there's not enough of it.
I mean,
Which
it's
is
already
why
going
the
on.
committees will continue to be actively doing their work to organize labor throughout.
And folks, which is also why you're utterly justified when you write a story and having a sweatshop or an abusive, because if you've got 5 sewing machines and your opponent or if you've got people sewing by hand and your opponent has sewing machines, you've got to work those people to death to try to have any hope of competing with the people with sewing machines. And it's bad, it's really bad for the people who don't have it, and there's no way that they can produce enough for everybody to have it.
And inevitably, then you get an industrial collapse of that segment of the industry in the long run.
In the long run, but
there's a lot of people that die before you get to the long run.
No, not arguing.
yeah,
I know.
that basically, what I am
indentured servants is
pointing
a
out
big
is
thing.
that one of the economic
That's
effects of
slavery.
this is
It's a
that
limited slavery.
in that area where you're not the rich guy who has a factory and treats your employees well because your daddy worked in the coal mine. Outside that area, when you're the master tailor and you had 20 journeymen working for you and 30 apprentices before the Ring of Fire, and now you're competing with clothing from sewing machines, you're working your apprentices and you're starving them. Not because you want to, but because you can't compete any other way.
The same thing happened in early in one of the stories that we wrote. It didn't make the cut into the print, but the background material made it very clear when we were stringing the first telegraphs, to modular, and we needed insulators. And you have to order insulators from somebody. You've got to order them from somebody that's doing porcelain or glass. Glass was cheaper. But how are the glass makers going to make, literally tens of thousands of insulators? Well, the answer is the apprentices are going to be pulling some really long hours,
With hot glass.
Oh, yeah. That's all kinds of fun.
because there's nothing else you can do.
This is little boys with no hands.
Right.
Well, and the thing is, they don't have to. An insulator doesn't have to be as high tech as a bottle. Okay.
No,
I mean, it doesn't.
but it's still got to be approximately
It does have
that
to.
shape, or it doesn't work.
Right. It does have to do that, but it doesn't. It's not as high tech. So you're going to give it to the lowest tech.
Yeah, you're going to give it to the
Producers.
crappy apprentices who you're going to stand over with whips. I mean, it's just bad. But what
Yeah.
else?
If you
can
don't
do?
turn out 50 of these, you don't get dinner.
Right.
Okay, beyond that, technology and the economic effects. For example, the worst possible thing that could stagger into the air, right, airplane, a flying
Airplane,
disaster.
airship, yeah, whatever.
A flying disaster of an airplane that's absolutely not economic is still going to be used half
Economic
to
and-
death because
yeah.
the scarcity of anything capable of doing the function, right? But
Yes,
it's
it
not
is.
not airplanes. How about machine tools?
Yeah, sure.
All of it. The big kicker is that the worst effects of the Ring of Fire are